Well, welcome to another episode of the Billy Ho Show. If we go back to about 1957 or thereabouts, Elvis Presley was in his prime, and all us teenagers loved his hairdo. And most of the guys had the sort of swishback like so, and a curly bit in the front, and something called a duck's ass at the back. And brill cream was the thing. And if you couldn't afford the brill cream, there's a little bowl of 3 flowers, and that was like grease, and that really stuck your head down. And if you never had any of that, you just sort of filled a sink up with water and stuck your head in it and put the comb, got yourself all sorted. But that was the haircut of the time. And in fact, if you've still got hair, unfortunately I haven't, but if you've still got hair, I'm pretty sure most guys in my generation still have that sweeping back and a little bit of a curl on the top. You could also do flat tops. Flat tops were vogue at the time, sort of just cut straight. But I didn't particularly like the flat top. I liked the old swishback and curlies, and that probably lasted till I was about 30. Then I started losing my hair, and that was the end of that. So there you go, the old haircuts of the 1957-58 era. Well, with me is Patrick O'Brien, and welcome to our little show, Patrick.
Thank you, Bill.
And Patrick's a truck driver from way back, but the thing that Patrick has done is he's written a couple of books. And the first one's The White Line in Mind, and the second one is One Man's Road. Let's grab that. So maybe just tell us what inspired you to write the book.
Well, initially, family and friends nagged me to put my poetry together into a book form. And that went on for a couple of years, being nagged by different people to put it together. And living in Taupo, a lady across the street, she encouraged me more than anyone. So it took several months to compile all my different stories and put them in some sort of form, and eventually self-published it, and it's now in its 4th edition.
Right, and there it is. And the other one you've just finished?
This one I've just completed, and this is the major one, and this comes to eventually explain of the why of that one.
Oh, okay. Right.
As to how the poetry came to be after being a truck driver all my life, yeah.
So sitting up in the cab, I mean, I can just see how you're a poet and whatever else people who drive trucks want to be. They've got plenty of time to think about it. Sort of, thundering down the road with a load of logs up your bum or a couple of big trailers or whatever. So you've got time to ponder all sorts of things, including writing a book.
You sure do. You sure do.
And I see you've got a lot of photographs. So this is your little man cave, I suppose you could call it, or truck cave. And memorabilia behind us here is reflecting what you've done in your trucking life.
It is, yeah. It's the first time in my life, really, I've had the space and the will to put up my life in the fashion that I have done, yeah. But I think, Bill, as a truck driver, we're very blessed to have the time to sit and think.
Absolutely.
We have more time to think than most people can think. And that can be a good thing, and it can be a very detrimental thing at times. But I'm just very fortunate because after having never been born on a truck and waiting for the school holidays to go with my uncles in the trucks and any opportunity to drive anything on the farm, the tractors or anything, I've just had the questions all my life as to why I can feel the wheel. And that's what's led to my books, because I've had my questions answered.
Good on you. When I was a kid like you sort of can't wait for the school holidays, so you go in with Grandad, and he had an Austin Lodestar that drove around all over the place here, actually. We're in Thames, by the way, folks. And in the Hauraki Plains, Norm Nicholson's truck did the cream first thing, and then he'd get other contracts to do a load of metal here or take some stock there. But he always had a stock crate and and extra sides handy to put up to go and do those jobs. But as I say, I'd sit in the cab while it drove around the paddock loading hay, 12, 13 years old. But these days, kids can't do that. They're not allowed anywhere near trucks. And I'm just wondering if that's one of the reasons it's hard to find truck drivers.
It is definitely one of the reasons. I asked a friend recently if I could share a clip of his son, and he said, by all means. So you're looking at the screen, and here's his truck and trailer comes in, does a U-turn, reverses faultlessly in one shot right back up to drop the trailer, and out of the cab steps a 9-year-old. And I made the comment that taught, told and shown by those who know. And that's how fortunate I am, and I believe you are, and other people of our age and our generation, because we got to do it with those who were doing it.
Yes.
And nowadays, many people aspire to become truck drivers or all this, but the rigmarole that they've got to go through, they don't get that hands-on experience like we did from this high.
When I started with Prescott's Transport, Bill Prescott, I arrived on his doorstep, he said to me, "What do you know about bobby calves?" And I thought, oh shit, I better be honest here, because normally I say I know everything, but no, for some reason I said, no, I don't know anything, expecting God knows what for an answer. And he said, excellent. We get the boys to show you on Monday and you're on your way. Good on you. But my point being, you know, I used to say, you know, by the time they find out you couldn't do it, you're doing it.
Yes. Yeah.
So that was back then.
Yeah, I've just been so fortunate to have had my dad. He was the one who gave me the first opportunities to feel what it felt like to drive. He set me behind the wheel of the old case tractor on the farm when I was 5.
Wow.
And Bill, I remember that as clear as I see you.
Yeah. I used to work after school on a market garden down the end of Rosebank Road. George Loretz was the boss, and he had me on the tractor. You know, first thing. What do you know about tractors? I know nothing. Excellent. Get on this thing, and this is how that works. This works. This. Away you go. Yeah. So it's just off we went driving. 10.
Yes. Yeah. I was 12, bailing on the farm out at Hunua. That's actually when I got my first ride in the Kenworth. I was hitchhiking out through the Hunua Gorge, and a Dale's Freightway Kenworth came around the corner, and he stopped to pick me up. I was 13, I think, and I got so excited I went up the passenger side and I scalded my arm on the stack so bad, and I hopped in the cab and you could smell my flesh burning, and all I could say, "Hello, my name's Patrick." And this chap called Don McLean, he says, "Hello boy," and he shook my hand. He said, "Where are you going?" I said, "Hunua." Yeah, okay, and off we went. And I sat in my first W model and I watched and I watched and I listened and I watched this man pedal, and I thought, yeah, that's me.
No, Kenworths were a long way from me when I when I started to drive. You know, I'm still on the Commas and the Austins and all those sorts of things. Yeah. But anyway, the book is, you've got a web page, or somehow we can get hold of your book?
Yes, my web page, created by friends because I'm very technologically ignorant, but the web page is titled www.whitelineandmine.co.nz, and
righto.
you just follow the prompts on it and it brings you eventually to One Man's Road, and there's a couple of video clips on there. And
right, and you're telling me before you've got some YouTube clips as well?
yes, I'm on YouTube under the one word, The Attitude Dude.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll find that, folks, and we'll put that up and just click on the links and watch this man doing his thing.
No one was more surprised than me when I started to write. What you're about to hear, I wrote it non-stop, and it took me 8 years before I could share it. Some people call it my signature work, but this is for the people of the road. It's called Bitumen and Back. Up and down that bitumen track, never to be sure if one will be back. Up and down that tar burnt black, up and down that same old track. With a new day dawning, yet an unseen sun, from the start of the run until it's over and done. The one thing embedded in this driver's mind is to have the run done this one more time. Or when the dusk comes, leading surely the night, from beginning the run till the end is in sight. 1 mile after mile, still another one comes, so to have them behind me and get them all done. Bitumen and me go a long way back, up and down that same old track. The hard part for me, the one simple fact, is never knowing for sure if I'll ever be back. I'll not forget what I have seen, for again and again up and down I have been. Of the scenery and sights, there's one thing I'm certain, that's to drive constant and clean, so it's not a last curtain. Bitumen and me go a long way back, up and down that tar burnt black. This battle to fight, of life if you like, and the will to go on, is as hard and is as weary as the bitumen I'm on. To be free of this bitumen, this tar seal in me, sometimes I wonder is it ever to be. Bitumen and me go a long way back, up and down that same old track. To be back off the bitumen, to be back off that track, there's one thing to remember, the final black fact. To get where you've come from, you've got to get back. And never will you do it if you forget where you're at, that and the fact that it's bitumen. Bitumen and back. Kia ora.
Good on you, Patrick. Well, there you go. Patrick.
Kia ora.
What I've got here is a copy of Talking Trucks. This is a book I wrote a couple of years ago, and it's the history of New Zealand trucking. And it's all from the programs that I did between 2013 and 2016. I'm going to let this go for $25. So it's a special. Christmas is coming up. So if you'd like your copy, there's my phone number, 027 277 0717. Just send me a text or email me, billhoheper@extra.co.nz to get your copy. $25 and the history of New Zealand trucks. The second Wheels at Wanaka event is on this coming Easter in 2021, and that's on Saturday and Sunday the 3rd and 4th of April. They're planning a bigger and brighter event with more vehicles and machines working as well as on display. Cars, trucks, tractors, traction engines, scrapers, dozers, graders, the lot. If it's got wheels, it'll be represented at this amazing event. They're having an earth moving only day on Good Friday the 2nd of April, and there's a $10 entry for this. So go to the webpage www.wheelsatwanaka.co.nz for more information. We'll be there filming the event, so we look forward to seeing you there. A couple of years ago I interviewed Mike Higgins, and if you don't know who Mike Higgins is, if you go to Twizel, just before you get into Twizel on the left hand side is a great big yard of machinery. Well, that's Mike. He's restoring all sorts of things and has been for a long time, and I'm sure he's still got a long time to go before it's all done. So let's have a talk to Michael. In the heart of the Mackenzie country is a town called Twizel. In the late 60s, they started a program they called The Project, which saw a series of canals built to supply water to 5 power generators. Twizel is also home to Mike Higgins. Mike has a great collection of heavy machinery as well as ordinary tractors. In this episode we're going to take a look at some of the contracting machines that Mike has. So let's join Mike and have a look around.
This is a Tornapole, one of the first motor scrapers to come into production, built by Torno, and it's just a step up from the original toad scoops. The back half is the toad scoop, as we knew them, pulled by a crawler tractor, and then to up the speed of them for production, the Torno come up with this concept of putting wheels on them. And
you see some of these same machines, at international they might be, but they've got 4 wheels.
oh yes, yeah, there's one over in the village there. They were usually designed for longer cart, better riding. It all depends on the size of the job, really.
Sure, so tell me about Tornapole. Is that a company previous to, when did they start?
Torno was a contractor in America, and he was sort of one of the first to come up with the concept of using a crawler tractor to push a bit of dirt with a bit of steel plate in front of a tractor.
Yep.
Then he found that he could pull more dirt than he could push, and so hence he started doing that, pulling the dirt. The dirt, of course, went round the wings, so he put wings on it, and then he put floors in it, and come up with ways to lift it up and down and tip the dirt out of it.
So this is sort of the late 30s?
Yes, yeah, back into the 20s and 30s.
Okay, gee.
Yeah.
There's some great minds out there. When you think about all the things that have been invented, somebody's come up with a concept like this,
Yeah.
and then it's other people have picked it up and improved and improved.
Well, because that's how everything develops. It's the concept of the first man that comes up with the idea, and as soon as people see what it is, they improve it.
Sure.
This D6 here was my father's first D6. Came out of the Pacific at the end of the Second World War. It was built for the American forces in 41, shipped into the Pacific. Most probably went in there to build airstrips by pulling a carriole. It only had a Buckeye winch on the back of it, no blade. My father picked this up, as I say, after the end of the war. They brought a lot of the machinery out and had it in paddocks around Wellington, contractors could go there and buy whatever they needed. That's when Gillies got all the GMC trucks and sold them for years around Oamaru. But this tractor, the blade was made for it by CWF Hamilton at Irishman's Creek in the early days, and the serial number on the blade is 001.
Wow.
So it's a beautiful little tractor now. We've got it all built and rebuilt and going again. And
I just see it's also suited to the driver. Everything's within
yes,
hand.
yes, it was quite well shaped for a tractor of that era, really.
Yeah.
And the wee starting motor is across the back, a little 2-cylinder horizontally opposed engine, which you put a rope on the flywheel and pull it to start it, and then you put the big motor into gear and warm the big motor up and open the throttle, and the big motor will start and the wee one will shut down.
So this is 1941. It's getting back there, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And just tell me how Caterpillar came about in the first place.
Well, Caterpillar was originally started in 1925 from two guys, one called Holt and the other one called Best. And they ended up fighting one another over patent rights and got themselves into all kinds of financial trouble. And their bankers said to them in the finish that they wouldn't back them if they continued with this. So they got them to join together and put their ideas together and created the Caterpillar Tractor Company in 1925.
So the name Caterpillar, is that just somebody seeing a caterpillar sort of crawling along? Oh, we'll call them Caterpillar.
Most probably something like that, Bill. But the first ones they made, the Holt ones, were some of the smaller versions. Best seemed to build a bit bigger tractors, but as the years moved on, they amalgamated their ideas together and built a full range of tractors.
Because when you think of tractors, their opposition is, International Harvester, Glee Track, Oliver, the list goes on and on and on.
Oh, yes, it does. But they were all watching one another, and a lot of them were buying different groups that had come up with some concept. So you see International Harvester as far as graders in the early days, they called them galleons, and their loaders they called Hoff, and they all sort of were buying parts of one another to continue the ideas.
Wow. And then the Japanese even get in the act,
at a later date,
in modern times, yeah.
Yep.
Wow. Wonder what they copied.
Well, they were all copying one another, and
So in the day, your father would have been absolutely over the moon when this turned up on his doorstep.
yes, it was a fairly big step, I'd say, for him. And his first one of the first jobs that they did with the Tornapoles and this D6 was the start of building the ponds at Lake Grasmere, just south of Seddon. And then he come through to the original Pukaki Dam and carted the core material into that dam. Then went through to Nightcaps in Southland, stripping coal. He ended up right through the 50s, him and his brother, on roadworks, working with other contractors. When my father went to Southland, these were some of the most modern machines available at the time, and so they were taking over from some of the contractors down there that were using drag lines to load 3 and 4 yard gravel trucks. And so then by 1960 the Tornapoles were to be replaced, and my father come back up through the Mackenzie country here and went to Ben Moore, was just starting, so he brought in some Caterpillar scrapers, and my generation and the family, we started in 1960 at the early days of Ben Moore.
You would have thought you had a job forever. When you look at that huge project, day after day after day, were they 24 hours going there or just long days?
Not always. Some of the concrete pours on that, different concepts of it were a thing, but in actual fact we were only working at Ben Moore for about 4 years.
Oh, okay.
Then we started to filter down to Aviemore that was built in the shadows of Benmore. Then every now and again, as the work ebbed and flowed, we'd go back out on roadworks, mainly in the South Island.
Sure. And then you come to this Twizel itself, you know, and the big canals that are being built. And as I said, the number of people here, every day the machines going out, the machines coming back, one man's got full control of it, making sure every process of the way is done properly. And just sort of sitting in a single man's hut, you're just starting your job, and you just think, oh, this is going to go on, I'm going to be here for years and years and years. But no, it all comes to an end. And so when you look at these days, folks, like we've looked at the dams and what have you today, we're the only people there. The whole place is just departed, it's just quiet.
It's a marvellous river, the Waitaki River, and it's interesting to follow its concept from the first dam built down at Waitaki in the 1920s. And then the government of the day come up and built a power station at Tekapo, and that water run just straight down into what was formed at a later date, the Benmore Lake. Pukaki was a earth dam built there to just hold more water back and get better control. And that's where my father came to in 47 and carted into that dam.
Wow.
And then Ohau wasn't allowed to be raised, but for this upper Waitaki they did control it, and they amalgamated those waters from Tekapo, Pukaki and Ohau, and then formed a new lake just down from Ohau called Ruatanapa, and that's where Max Smith built or come up with the concept of building an international rowing course, and
still there today.
Was chastised fairly severely for it, but look at what we have today in the country. It would be one of the best rowing venues in the world.
Amazing. Well, we'll continue on our little wander around your adventure land here, Michael. Ray Shearing has got one of these in his shed up the back of his farm, but it looks like it's two of them.
It is.
And they come to its demise in a lake, and they drained the lake, got it out. And the reason it got into the lake in the first place was because it started to flood, I understand, and one of the engines wouldn't go, and of course it would just go round and round and round. But this is just a single version of that same thing.
Yeah, this is the TC12 is what you're talking about. Was made by, it's a General Motors product, and the single version was called a C6, and to get up in the pair they joined two of them together.
Oh, okay.
And
but even this is a big machine.
yeah, this is sort of equivalent to a D8 in the Caterpillar range.
Yep.
D7, D8, powered by the same engine as the TC12 you're talking about, a 671 GM. And I picked this up. It was virtually lying redundant, derelict in the south bank of the Rakaia, and I made arrangements with the owner, and
Here it is.
and we've picked it up and we've got to go. So I'll just show you.
Yeah, look forward. Resurrected.
Yeah, no, it really does start well.
And what were they like in comparison to everything else to drive?
Well, in comparison with the D8, the variations are that this has got power shift in it, the same kind of thing as a Caterpillar, but the radiator and that is in the back in these.
That's right, yes. Yeah, there it is.
And with the TC12, what they did is they took one track off and put a big spigot shaft through and joined two of them together. So the far one drove the right hand side and this one drove the left hand side. And they just hinged.
In the middle, like this.
Middle, yeah.
Yeah, wow. Were they successful? Did they sell many of those?
Oh yes, they wouldn't be as popular as the Caterpillar, but it was a way of getting into the big horsepowers.
Yeah.
At Benmore, the Ministry of Works had 2 of them, and there was 2 contractors there that had 1 each. And then LD Collis at Ojai, which is where the one come from that you were talking about, they dug out of the mine. He ended up with 4 of them.
Oh, okay.
And they were using them for pushing the scrapers. He had 8 TS24 Euclid scrapers going there. So
Well, what was that project?
that was stripping coal.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right. Well, a big thing.
This is one of my earlier D8s. It's a early 1H and manufactured in the 1930s. It's got a Latorno blade set up on it, which was one of the first blades to be fitted to the Caterpillar crawlers. But they had that arrangement across the top that to get the rope back to down into the winch on the back to operate the blade. But oh, it was a terrible thing for bumping your head on when you stood up in the seat. So at a later date they actually brought the rope out the side round a sheave and run it back through a pipe and round to the winch, which overcome that problem.
So all that disappeared.
That disappeared. Apart from this piece on the front.
Yep.
And then at a later date they made up a nose cone with just the sheave blocks on there. And they've done away with all that frame.
Wow. But at the time it was that's what you had, that's what you got on with it.
I mean, that's all that we knew in those
Yeah,
days.
of course. There you go, folks. Another piece of history. Now we join the old Goose Router from Geraldine, and he talks about spuds.
Going for a bit of a drive. Guess what I'm doing? I'm a pilot. Not a helicopter pilot. There's a cool story I could tell you about that one, but not today.
Over the years I've been the engineer, the mechanic and the firefighter, but I've also been an oversized pilot. So as the demand for spuds grows, so does the demand and size of agricultural equipment. In New Zealand there are over 200 potato growers, and the growing area is 10,500 hectares. Now if you think about this as a rugby field as a hectare, that's 10,500 rugby fields that need to be worked up and planted each year. Around 525,000 tonnes of potatoes are grown each year. So if you think of a bag of Heartland's potato chips as 150 grams, that's approximately 3.5 million bags of potato chips that we produce each year. Approximately a quarter of the annual crop is exported. Spuds are planted between September and December each year. So old Fergie here is getting a good workout, 360 horsepower, working to a depth of about 350 mil. Then they come along with the bed former and make a bed, and what it is it's a trench. So then when they come along with the destoners, it picks the stones up and puts it in the bottom of the trench. The stones are buried because when it comes to digging time, the digger can't figure out what's a stone and what's a potato. So that's why they go through and destone the paddock. If they don't destone it properly, it's a lot of extra hard work for the people working on the spud machine, picking out the reject spuds. They also have to pick out the stones that come through the system as well. Just like potatoes that are grown in people's gardens, they all need love, nurturing and attention. But this is done on a grand scale when it comes to irrigation and fertiliser. For each potato planted, they can yield between 5 and 10 potatoes each, averaging about 175 grams. So it all comes down to care and attention of the farmer as to how good his crop is going to be each year. But anyway, that's my lot for the show. Cheers, Robbie, over and out. Whee!
Well, that's our show for this week. We'll see you all again next week.